Okay. Sequence is also a database object which is stored in the database server. Okay. It automatically generates primary key or unique key values. It can be either ascending order or descending order. It is used to generate the sequence numbers on a particular column of the table. It is not related to any table. Sequence will start generating values from its minimum value. Default minimum value is 1. Default increment value is +1 only. So syntax for this sequence is have to use like this: create or replace sequence name. Start with value, default minimum value, this one, increment by value. So that is default is 1 here also. Minimum value 1, maximum value is 10 to the power of 27. That means these many 9s you will get, these many numbers. No cycle and cycle is there. Here the option is no cycle or cycle. No cycle means it will not regenerate. Cycle means once it is reached the maximum value, so then it will start again from the minimum value. No catching size. Catching size is default 20 KB. So sequences can be incremental or decremental. That means either you can use in the ascending order or descending order. So increment by can have the positive or negative values. Positive value in the increment by indicates the incremental sequence, that is low value to high value. Negative value in the increment by indicates the decremental sequence, that is high value to low value. Start with class has the highest priority than the minimum value for the first cycle. Start with value cannot be altered. Once you created the sequence, this value cannot be altered. So when a sequence is created with a new user specified value, so then sequence will start generating the numbers from 1 and ends with the 10 to the power of 27. Okay. Increment by 1 means, so default a sequence is incremented by 1 value. So that is increment by 1 here. 1/n, that means number we have to provide either 1 or 2 or 3. So that number by default the sequence is incremented by 1 only. When this class is used, it will allow user to specify the increment either with positive or negative value. Okay. Any interval can be specified for increment. If positive value is specified, it generates the sequence numbers in the ascending order. If negative values provides, it generates the sequence in the descending order. So, and we have the start with the n. This class is used to specify the start value of the sequence. It is executes only for once. Start value should be greater than or equals to minimum value and less than or equals to maximum value. Okay. It executes only for once for start value, and it should be between the minimum and maximum value. So minimum value it is used to specify the minimum value, maximum value it will be for the to specify the maximum value. No cycle, it is a default option which is set for the sequence, and that sequence will not be reusable. So no cycle means it is a default option without giving any parameters for this. So if you observe the syntax here, create or replace sequence name we are providing here. and remaining all the options set in the square brackets. So that means on the all the square brackets means these are all optional values. Okay, that is up to your wish whether it is you want to use this values based on this. Start with class, increment by class, minimum value, maximum value. So you have to provide that one. Otherwise, just default it will create a sequence name. And once you create with the only sequence name this option, then what will happen? By default it will increment by 1 only. So it will start with the 1 and increment by 1 only. And there will not be, it will use no cycle option. With that no cycle option, what will happen? You cannot reuse the sequence once it is reached maximum value. Cycle means it is used to make the sequence repeat with respect to the generating the numbers between the minimum value to maximum value, vice versa. So cycle means it is used to make sequence repeat with respect to the generating the numbers between minimum value to maximum value and vice versa. So that means maximum to minimum based on the condition that whether it is an incremental sequence or decremental sequence, based on that it will recycle. So catch means it is supposed to create a buffer to store a number of values here. It will support to create a buffer to store a number of values. So then it will fast, otherwise so it will get the values to some delay. That means the cache is memory area which is used to access sequence values very fastly. So when you use the cache, the sequence can be accessed fastly. So when you use the no cache, what will happen? It is a default parameter when we create the sequence with the no cache option. Parameters, then the set of the sequence values are storing into the database memory. Every time we want to access the sequence numbers, the Oracle server will go to the database memory and return to the user, so that it will degrade the performance of the application. So when you use the no cache, every time it will go to the database and it will get the values. So it will take some time. But when you use the cache, it will store some memory for this sequence. From that, automatically you will get the values faster. So in this sequence, it will use the two pseudo columns. Okay. Is the column pseudo columns is the two pseudo columns it is going to use. In the sequence, normally we'll use the two pseudo columns. One is next value, that is next value. It gives the next value generated by the sequencer, and second one is the curve value. Okay, it gives the current or present value provided by the sequence. What is the pseudo column? Anyone knows?
One step back, sir.
Huh? What is the pseudo column? These are in the sequence we are using these two pseudo columns, next value and curve value. So what is actually meant by pseudo column? So pseudo column is behaves like a table column, but is not actually stored in the table. Suppose if you observe, select star from EMP. Okay. So here I'm having the 8 columns values are displaying here. But if you observe in the starting, before the employee number column, we are getting some series of numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like that. From where it is getting? So actually, Oracle database will store additional columns in the database that we cannot see directly here. Okay, so those columns are called pseudo columns. So suppose if you use the row number, okay, row number is there, row ID is there. Row ID. Okay, so if you see this, select row number comma row ID from EMP, or you can say E dot star also. I'll mention E. So then I'm getting the existing columns: employee number, employee name, job, manager, hire date, salary, commission, department number. So along with I am having this is the row number and this is the row ID. So these columns are exist in the database, but directly you cannot see here. When you use the simply select star from EMP, so then we are getting only these many values only. But when you use the specific column, row ID, row number, and or suppose in the sequence next value, curve value, this will call as a pseudo columns. That pseudo columns will exist in the database, but we cannot modify them directly. Okay, we can access from that values only, but we cannot update, delete, insert into that pseudo columns. Oracle only will take care of this pseudo columns. So in the pseudo columns, you cannot modify, update, delete. Only you can use the select and describe. That's only. Okay. So pseudo columns behaves like a table column, but is not actually stored in the table. You can select from pseudo columns, but you cannot insert, update, or delete their values. A pseudo column is also similar to the function without arguments. However, functions without arguments typically return the same value for every row in the result set, whereas pseudo columns typically returns the different value for each row. So how will you access this sequence? So then you have to use this sequence name dot pseudo column. Let us suppose sequence name is SEQ, then SEQ dot next value, SEQ dot curve value. Like that you have to use this. We'll create a sequence SEQ underscore so that I'll give 17. Okay, I'm creating the sequence. Create sequence SEQ underscore 17. That's it. So there is no other parameters I'm using here. Only sequence name I'm using. So sequence is created. So now if you select SEQ underscore 17 dot next value from 2F. So what is this now? When I execute this one, first it is giving the next value is 1. Suppose second time if you execute, then it is giving 2. Third time if you execute, again it is next value 3. So that means sequence is generating series of numbers. If you see this, if I am executing, fourth time it is going to 4 here. Suppose now I want to check the current value. So here you can give current value so that it will give the 4. Suppose again if you run this again one more time, 5. Then you can run this current value and it is displaying 5. To know the current sequence value, so you can use this select sequence name dot current value from dual. Then you will get the current value. Suppose you have inserted some records today using this sequence, but tomorrow you want to know how many records are inserted or what is the next value for this sequence. Then you can use this current value. So if you want to generate next value, then you have to use this sequence dot next value. So we'll create one more example with this. Create sequence S2 with the options here. I'm giving the S2 underscore 17. Create sequence S2 underscore 17. Start with 1, minimum value 1, increment by 1, maximum value 5. No cycle. So in the previous example, without the any other parameters, only sequence I created. So then it is, whenever you are using the next value, it is incrementing by 1 only. Okay. So started with the 1 and increment by 1. Now here, create sequence S2 underscore 17. Start with 1, minimum value 1, increment by 1, maximum value 5. No cycle. What will happen? Sequence is created. So now we'll create a table to insert this sequence using this sequence. Okay. Create table XX student underscore 1704. Serial number SNAM I am creating. Okay. Only 2 columns I have created. Now I want to insert some data into this using this sequence. How can I insert? Insert into our table name XX underscore student underscore 1704 values. So here for the serial number, if I say 1 manually, 1, 2, 3 like that, suppose if I inserted 20 records today. Tomorrow again, I have to verify how many records it is inserted, what is the serial number. So instead of that, so automatically to generate the serial number, so I'm going to use this sequence name, that is S2 underscore 17 dot next value, comma. So name, in the name column, I am providing some names, Rajat or something. Okay. So then what we'll do? So it will insert the, suppose before that, I want to check this whether what is the sequence, present sequence. Select a sequence name, that is S2 underscore 17 dot curve value from dual. Okay. This is the sequence we created, S2 underscore 17. So for that, what is the current value I'm checking? Once you created the sequence, first it will have no value. Okay. Whenever you created the sequence, when you check immediately with the curve value, it doesn't have the any value in the sequence. Sequence S2's current value is not yet defined in this session. That means once you use the next value, then only it will start from the whatever the starting value it is there. It will start with that number. So we created the sequence immediately when we verify the current value, it will display like this. That means the sequence is not started in this session. Then I'm using this insert into XX student underscore 1704 values sequence dot next value, comma, name I am providing. So one row it is inserted. Okay. So same way I will insert one more record. Venkat I am giving. So I have inserted 3 records. Can we check the table? So here automatically in the serial number 1, 2, 3, it is inserted. Okay. So one more record I will insert. Sunil. 4 records inserted. I'll insert 1, 2 other records. So now in the table, how many records are there? So 5 records are there. We created the sequence with the maximum value 5 only here. So now I will try to insert next value. What will happen here? If I try to insert the next record instead of the Rajan Madan, I will give. So here I am going to insert the 6th record. Then it will throw the error. What is the error here? So sequence exceeds the maximum value and cannot be instantiated. Okay. This value, this is the error when you reach the maximum value of the sequence. So once you reach the maximum value, you cannot insert them with this next value. And if it is there any while creating here, no cycle we mentioned. If you created with the cycle, what will happen? It will create with the, again it will start from the 1. But we have mentioned here no cycle. So start with 1 value, minimum 1 value, increment by 1, maximum value 5, no cycle. So that means once it is reached the 5 records here, that means sequence is reached maximum value, then it is not going to take the next value. Only 5 records only inserted here. So that we can create one more sequence. Create sequence S3 underscore 1704. Start with 1, increment by 1, minimum value 1, maximum value 5. Cycle. Here I am giving the cycle option and catch 2. Okay. So here I am creating the new sequence. Sequence is created. So I will truncate the data from this table. Yes. So now data from this table is deleted. Now I try to insert with the same. Here again I am going to insert with this values 1. So I need to change these values. Okay. Sequence names I have to change it here. What is the sequence name here? S3 underscore 1704. Okay. Now I'm going to insert this first record, second record, third, fourth, fifth. So here we have used the maximum 5 here, but I'm going to use the 6th record also. So it is inserted. Again, I will insert one more record. Okay, what I am going to insert here. So what will happen here? In the table, it is inserted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once it is reached maximum value, then again it is started from the 1, 2. So why? Because in the sequence creation time, we are given the cycle option here. Cycle option and catch option also we are given. So in the previous example, there is no cycle we are given. Here, no cycle. No cycle means once it is reached maximum value, it won't allow to insert next value. So here, cycle option means once it is reached maximum value, then again it will start from the minimum value here. If you see this, it is started with one value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, once it is reached the maximum value 5, then it is started with the minimum value 1. Again 1, 2. Suppose if you insert one more record again. Yeah, then it is inserted with the 3 here. If you see 3. That means cycle option means once it is reaching the maximum value, so then again it will start from the minimum value. Like that it can be used continuously. Okay. So few more examples are there in the sequence part. So tomorrow we'll continue. So any doubts as of now? So everyone practicing the class after this. So I had given tasks, two tasks I had given. One is one with this practice questions I had given. So only 2 persons are replied to that one. And one more task is also given, substring and instinct task. That also only 2 persons are replied to that. So tomorrow I need everyone to reply that practice questions and also for the task which is given for this substring and instinct. Okay. If you have not able to complete the task, you can ask me so that I will explain it one more time. So how to complete that one. But keeping the idle means it is waste of your time and my time also. Okay. If you are not understood, immediately ask me. So few people only responding when I'm asking here. But when everyone has to respond to my questions so that I can know that everyone is active or not. Okay. We'll continue by tomorrow. I need the answers for this practice questions and also for the task. Okay.